Yes, this music should sound awfully familiar. It is from the James Bond series, one of the most well-known and longest ongoing productions in the movie industry. The first film, Dr. No, dates all the way back to 1962, when the first James Bond was played by Sean Connery and continues up to this very day, with the most recent film, Spectre, being released just a few weeks ago. The series has been praised for its spectacular action, ingenious plot, and witty humor, serving as an absolute favorite for many movie fans.
But unfortunately, as with all other films, the series contains many different aspects of prejudice that must be acknowledged. We will be exploring racism, lookism, and sexism that is present within two of the movies, Skyfall from 2012 and the recent Spectre from 2015.
The first prejudice we'll analyze is racism. In the James Bond films, racism is so ubiquitous that we don't even notice it. To start off, every single James Bond since the film series has started has been white, and so have most of the villains. Sure, there have been some actors and actresses of different ethnicities, but they're mostly delegated to minor background roles.
Another aspect of prejudice to look out for in the James Bond series is lookism. Lookism refers to the preferential treatment given to certain people who are physically attractive or whose appearance fits the societal norm of what it means to be beautiful. So firstly, how can we identify someone as beautiful? Well, the standards are quite simple.
For females, blonde, slim, green or blue eyes, and attractive.
For males, masculine, handsome face, and obviously over 6 feet.
Finally, one of the most obvious bias in 007 movies is sexism. We see a new 007 movie poster, and our eyes are met with not only the newest James Bond, but also the Bond girl. Now, what does a Bond girl typically do in a 007 movie? Sit still, look pretty, and fall in love with James Bond. This is just a scratch on the surface of how 007 movies actually portray women. Let's start off with the fact that in every 007 movie, James Bond is obviously the male action hero who fights the battle and saves a girl, because all girls are obviously weak and incapable of defending themselves, right?
The first prejudice we'll analyze is racism.
The trend continues in Skyfall, where everyone in the cast is white. Q, M, Bond, Silva, they're all white as marshmallows. The token minority is Miss Moneypenny, a black woman who's shown to be a level-headed agent and sniper, but she still misses her shots, gets traumatized, barely shows up again, and ends up working as a glorified secretary because, hey, we can't have the black chick distracting from all these badass white guys. There's also the scene where all the Chinese waitresses are shown serving all the dominant white males, which impressively manages to combine both sexism and racism in a single scene. And then there's the fight scene with the Chinese gangster, where it's just, you know what, just watch it. Yep, the Chinese gangster just got eaten by a giant lizard, and no, he didn't get to speak a single line. And then we have Spectre. Spectre shows us that Asians are Hollywood's answer to cannon fodder, where the Chinese bodyguard goes down in even less time than the Chinese gangster did. Of course, most of the white villains tend to go down just as fast, which happens again and again in a film that is strangely devoid of any non-white villains. I mean, they're in a desert in the middle of Africa, and they can't find any non-white help. Speaking of Spectre's strangely white-dominated personnel, amongst its leaders there's exactly one black guy, one Chinese guy, and then all white guys. Apparently, even terrorist organizations are dominated by racial privilege. On the protagonist side, we have Miss Moneypenny, who is actually fleshed out as a character in this film, and serves as Bond's trustworthy confidant and informant. While she does become sort of out of focus later on, that's mostly due to the plot, not her race, so kudos to director Sam Mendes for a job well done.
Another aspect to look out for in the 007 films is lookism. Here the message is clear. Not only is being beautiful good, but should be the most important quality that should define someone. Let's firstly start off by taking a look at Skyfall. Here are Macabre, and basically the director uses a zoom-up technique to show us the top half of Craig's body. He is handsome, at least 180 centimeters, and is built in with masculinity. As he is looking at himself in the mirror, he also puts on himself flower perfume. A clear example of lookism indeed, because viewers are encouraged to look at Bond on the outside rather than on the inside. Another example that shows this later on in the movie is when James Bond meets Severine, the Bond girl. The first thing that we viewers notice is that Severine has heavy makeup, is tall, poised, and has flamboyant display. Now, James Bond comments on the Bond girl.
Only a certain kind of woman wears a backless dress with a Beretta 70s strapped to her thigh.
One can never be too careful when handsome men in tuxedos carry walkthroughs.
Viewers are only able to access this conversation that talks about their physical appearance, which is exactly why it will be an example of lookism. How about Inspector? Is that even a question? Well, the best part is when the mooks wear suits and dresses despite being restrictive during fights. The last time I checked, a person wandering around in the desert looked something like this. As such, by inserting such scenes of people wearing suits or constantly wearing bright and outlandishly colored clothing. It sends the message that we should strive to become like Daniel Craig, or strive to become like one of those Bond girls. It heightens the standards of beauty and causes viewers to focus on appearance as the predominant and most important characteristic.
The biggest bias we have here is sexism, and it's clearly portrayed in both movies. First, we have Skyfall.
I can help you.
Bond saves Severin from being a sex slave, and yet right after he saves her, he has sex with her. People are traumatized by the experience of being sex slaves. Most can't even hold a normal conversation with a male. But of course, for the sake of the movie plot, the beautiful female had to have sex with Bond because all women fall for Bond's charm, right? Severin dies, easily, I might add. Seemed like she was playing a pivotal role until we realized that the movie doesn't care about her. Once she's dead, the camera doesn't include her in any of the shots. If it had been a male character, then we'd see more of this dramatic death, as we'd be expected to mourn for the death of the mighty, strong male character. Next, we have Spectre. Once the movie got into introductory credits, all I could see were silhouettes of women's bodies. What does this tell us? The fact that we're not supposed to focus on the individualistic characteristics of females, but instead the bodily features. Ladies and gentlemen, sexual objectification at its finest. Then we're introduced to a mourning widow. Or is she mourning? Bond comes onto her and she doesn't hesitate to accept him. Isn't she supposed to be in tears thinking about her husband's death, not having sex with the person she met at her husband's funeral? Geez, Hollywood needs to realize that not all women are desperate for sex. And we think this is no longer a problem when Dr. Swan steps into the picture and seems uninterested in Bond. But guess what? They end up having sex. So much for taking a step forward and away from sexual objectification. What is obvious in both movies is that females are prone to sexual objectification, without exception. We can consider it appreciation for beauty if we were to focus on the unique characteristics of each individual. As mentioned in the 3 ways to tell the difference between the appreciation of beauty and sexual objectification. But it doesn't happen in 007 movies, where how female bodies look is the main focus of the plot for women in the movies.
Prejudice goes unnoticed until it's explicitly revealed. Sometimes viewers fail to challenge their underlying assumptions about race, gender, and looks because they're subconsciously swept away by the exciting scenes or the inventive plot. In the James Bond series, we see different prejudices working together. What's important, however, is that people constantly strive to assess the different forms of bias that may be prevalent in the movie industry and continue to challenge what is considered perfectly natural.